we live?
And we are live.
I think so.
We're live.
Are we? Perfect. I'll just let everyone know. So should we go into the Zoom for that or? Yeah. All right. Perfect. All right. You wanna head things off?
Yeah. So welcome back. This is Down to the Wire. Lovely Wednesday night here in Smithfield.
Yeah. Sorry about that. We were just having some quick technical difficulties.
Yeah, sorry for the late start. We apologize. Got lots to talk about over the past 6 days that you guys haven't seen us.
Yeah.
5 days. There's been a lot going down, so we're excited to get into it.
Yeah. So for any of you guys who don't know, before we head off into sports and all that stuff, and before we have our special guest Casey Cummins on the show, we just wanted to quickly acknowledge that the actor for both Jackie Robinson in the movie 42 and Black Panther, Chadwick Boseman, has sadly passed away at the age of 43.
Huge shock. I mean, nobody knew that he had stage 3. What was it?
Colon cancer.
Yeah. Very sad.
I mean, the fact that he kept it to himself, it really kind of shows what type of a guy he was. I mean, he didn't really want the pity of all that stuff. I mean, that really kind of says a lot about him. But I mean, it's really a tragic loss. I mean, like if you look at all the roles he's had as Jackie Robinson and all these different roles that he's done, I mean, I can't really think of too many actors that really can that are that versatile. Like he can really he could become almost anyone that
Which
he
proves that not all heroes wear capes. I mean, he's a great guy,
great
role model,
great humanitarian. I mean, It's a very unfortunate loss for Hollywood and everyone.
He's someone you look up to, especially as a kid. Black Panther,
definitely
great movie. But,
but it's definitely a very sad loss. But we're gonna be before we get into the start of things, you want to kind of just go over some stuff that's happened over the weekend.
Yeah. So this weekend in sports, the Bruins. Obviously, we'll get into the Bruins a little more, but the Bruins were eliminated from the playoffs.
Yeah. So unfortunately, the Bruins unfortunately their season is over. Lost in double overtime, and a lot of people are going to talk about that. But when we actually get our guest on soon, we're actually going to go into that a little bit more. So we're actually just sending some stuff through right now, but.
Celtics continue to look great. I mean, we're up 2-0 against the Raptors. We'll get into all this stuff more right now. We're just trying to get our guests ready.
Yeah. Another thing that we'll actually try to be watching a little bit during the show is that Rockets and Thunder are going to be at a Game 7.
Exactly.
So the Thunder came back, and that's going to be something we're going to be interested in. But
we'll keep you guys updated on that game too. We've got some exciting stuff going on in the NBA. Lakers advancing the playoffs as well.
Utah obviously ended up going out. Donovan Mitchell, I guess they're one of now a few teams to blow a 3-1 lead. Oh, I think our guest is about to show up. Awesome. All right, let's see. Alrighty. All right, we're about to get audio and video. All right. Hey, Coach, can you hear us?
Yes. Yep. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, Coach.
Yes, sir.
How's it going?
Good. Thank you for having me on.
All right. So for anyone who's watching, this is Coach Casey Cummins. He's coached baseball at all levels from high school to semi-pro and even in the Cape Cod League. Coach is a very enthusiastic Bruins fan, so we wanted to bring him on, get his take about just a lot of stuff going on because unfortunately their season's over. So Coach, what do you think about the Bruins unfortunately being out? What do you think about their season and any thoughts on it so far?
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, it kind of ended as sooner than we all wanted. Kind of going into it, it was obviously going to be a little bit different than the usual playoff format. It's unfortunate because I think and a lot of people have talked about the past few days, it might be one of the last runs this core has to another Stanley Cup, and it's unfortunate, obviously, with everything that's going on, and they were one of the hottest teams in the league going into the break, and hockey obviously is one of those things where it's all about momentum once you get into the Stanley Cup, and you ride that hot goalie, or you have all 4 lines rolling, and the Bruins had that in March. I remember one of the last games before the lockdown or whatever the shutdown. They played the Lightning at home, and it was, an awesome game. They ended up losing, but it was just one of those games where you could tell, these guys are going to have a great series in a couple weeks, or at the time, a couple weeks. And I like the Bruins' chances. obviously, like I said, it was weird to begin with. But after that round robin where they didn't look very good, they kind of looked like the same old Bruins. I just think some of the older players just could never ramp it back up. And unfortunately, I think that was kind of their downfall. But they ran into a really, really very, very, very good team. And it's unfortunate that things kind of went that way. But
yeah, I mean, definitely. I know that when we were watching the Bruins last year, I remember our baseball team got really wrapped around them during that playoff run. And I mean, I remember last year's Bruins team, like there was an energy behind it, and you almost kind of felt that going into this year as well. So I mean, they won the President's Cup trophy. They won because they had the best record. They looked really strong going into this playoffs, and just a lot of things just didn't go right for them come that time. What are your thoughts on Tuukka Rask kind of like dipping out of the playoffs at the last second?
yeah, unfortunately, I mean, I don't know if we'll ever really know truly why. I mean, you hear so many different rumors, and you don't know what to believe and all that. And if truly, deep down, I believe he did have some sort of family emergency. Unfortunately for Tuukka, is as great of a goalie as he's been, he's also certainly had his moments that allow his detractors to, point at those. And I always say, like, he doesn't necessarily always do himself a lot of favors. People always point to, 2010 when they blew the 3-0 lead to Philadelphia. He was the starting goalie for. He obviously wasn't the starter in 2011 when they won. 2013 against the Blackhawks. Even in the Olympics, he bagged out of an Olympic game for being sick. There was a game at the end of the year, I forget what year it was, 2015, where against the Senators, they had a win to get in, and he didn't play. He was sick, and obviously no one showed up, including him, last year in Game 7 against the Blues. So it's unfortunate. I'm sure there really was an emergency. It's just kind of one of those things where it's like every year there seems to be something, and I have one of those, like, I have a love-hate with him as far as me as a fan. I think he's a very, very, very good goalie, but there are times when I'm pulling out my hair when I hear him make comments similar to what he did right before he left. I mean, he said it didn't feel like playoff hockey and all this. And as a player and now coach, if I hear someone on the team say that, I clearly right away say, well, that person's not in it. And again, I'm sure there was something. I'm not doubting there was maybe a family emergency or something like that. But unfortunately for Tuukka, just kind of the bed that he's made over these past several years, the fans aren't going to give him the benefit of the doubt. He's going to probably go down as the most underappreciated and most criticized athlete maybe in Boston history, I think, in the end. So,
yeah. I mean, Tuukka is definitely one of those guys. I mean, you could argue that he does get scapegoated for a lot of stuff that he doesn't do, but then there is also his fair share of stuff that he does do, and it's like come on, man, like it's almost just like if only without those things, and people could just be like, this guy gets hated on a lot, but it's just unfortunate because unfortunately things like this happen, and you know what, guys get sick, family emergencies obviously happen, but it's just unfortunate that they happen at these times, and obviously the statements of him saying this isn't playoff hockey, all that stuff. It really does come back to bite in a way like that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, he was incredible. Like, last year was his year to win the Cup, and he was unbelievable, especially in that Carolina series. He won them that series, even though it was a sweep. Those games easily could have went the other way. And it's unfortunate that, obviously Game 7, like I said, no one showed up, not just Tuukka.
Yeah,
I
remember watching that game when we got back from playoffs, and that was a rough night, especially playoff loss to Hopedale, and then we were like, let's hold out for the Bruins, and it was just like, oh no.
Yeah, it was early pretty quick, but I mean, the thing is, one thing that Tuukka, I guess, if you look at it, a positive of all this is like, immediately everybody always says, when he opted out, people say, great, we have Halak, like we're okay, we'll roll with Halak, and it is clear that as good of a number two that he is, or 1B you want to call him, he's not that elite. I mean, I was looking it up before, he had an .896 save percentage. I mean, he had some real soft goals. I thought he was very, very good in Game 5. I think they they got outlasted kind of at the end. But I think at least out of this, people, those that are still on the Tuukka bandwagon say, look he's the guy you got to go with, moving forward. So I still don't know I don't know what he's going to do. I still wouldn't be shocked if, at some point he retires in the near future. He's kind of at the end of his contract. I don't know where he is mentally, especially after all this. Maybe he goes somewhere else to get a fresh start, just to kind of get out of it. Maybe he goes play somewhere where, the media isn't at and the fan base isn't at. Maybe that's what he needs. I don't know, but there's so many question marks, and goalie is certainly one of those. I mean, they have a ton of young talent. They have the best college goalie from last year from Maine. He's under their sort of control. The guy that came in the playoffs there, yeah, he got lit up, but I'm not going to blame the guy. At that point, the game was out of reach. So there's options there. It's not like they're in trouble if he retires, but I don't know. This team is going to go in many different directions, kind of at this point.
Coach, back to Game 5 just a little bit.
Yep.
There's a lot of controversy over the refereeing. Obviously a thriller. Can we get your thoughts on that?
Yeah. I hate to I'm never a person that really wants to call it a ref or whatever it is, but it seemed like this series, both physically and with their calls, the refs got more involved than usual. The game that ended up being a blowout, but that second goal, Clifton's skating backwards to cover up on a one-on-one play, and essentially the linesman makes a pick. And those guys have a really tough job. I mean, that's the fastest game on earth, and they got to get out of the way as quick as possible. So unfortunately, it leads to a goal, and everybody points to this guy, and he's the scapegoat. But there was some call. I mean, though the play on Richie, I'm not a Richie guy, but you can look at that and say maybe that's not worthy of 5 minutes. The hit that put McAvoy out in Game 5 for a period of time, maybe you look at that and say maybe that is 5 minutes if that's the threshold. I thought overall, even in all these other series, I think the refereeing hasn't been great. And I kind of wonder how much not having a crowd plays a role in that too. There was a trip and over. I mean, there was that Krejci splash at one point that they didn't call, but then they called a trip later on. If that's a game in the Garden, does one of those not get called, or one does, or if it's in Tampa? So I'd love to know, like, here afterwards, after all this tournament is over, to hear from the refs to know how much did the not having the crowd play a factor in that.
I mean, not having a crowd, and I'd also probably say, having what the refs have to say, and also, it's going to be interesting hearing what the players probably have to say. Any sport where it feels like the officials are running the game more than the players, it can always be a problem. So it's going to be interesting, what player critiques are there and what official critiques are.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think the officiating for the most part is usually pretty good, and I think, like I said, there are times where you can always play that double standard. Hey, that was called, or the threshold is a tiki-tack slash, and then all of a sudden that's not a penalty. So there was a lot of working of the refs after. There always is, especially like last year. I remember Berube of the Blues, after one of the games, said, we're getting called we're the most penalized team in the league, and then all of a sudden, it's Game 4, a swing game, or Game 5, excuse me, and Sean Corrali gets tripped. Clearly gets slew-footed. They don't call it, and 2 seconds later, it's in the back of the Bruins net, and now all of a sudden they're down 3-2 in the series. I feel like Cassidy tried to do that a couple times this series, kind of trying to work the refs a little bit, and it just never. And again, that could come down to Berube works the refs. They don't get that call. That's a away game. The crowd. Who knows if the crowd plays a role in that too? So
they definitely do. You can kind of tell. Obviously, playoff hockey is always solid, but you can definitely tell that the fans, how much of a role that the fans actually do have. It really can, it almost like is having another guy on the ice.
Yeah, and it was one of those things where it wasn't necessarily in this Bruins series, but if you played it out where obviously there's fans, that third game when that team is maybe, so in this case, say the Bruins were the force, if the playoffs were regular, they would have been the home team in Games 1 and Game 2, and then the Lightning maybe get a push in Game 3, where here the Bruins take Game 1, they come back, maybe have the crowd to help them out in Game 2, it's a whole different thing. So yeah, it definitely plays a role. I think this tournament is just kind of is ultimately going to show you which team had the best talent rather than which team maybe had the best momentum. I think I think in the end, the Lightning are probably the most talented team, and they're obviously still down. Kucherov left in Game 5. Who knows when he'll be back? And then Stamkos, they said, may return for the next series. And then in the West, you have Colorado. I think Colorado and Vegas are kind of the favorites in the West.
Yeah, I was about to ask you if because the Bees are now out of it, who would you probably say are the couple of teams that you would say probably have a good shot, and why would you probably think that?
Yeah, I think going back to that idea of I think just talent more than momentum or going on this magical cup run. I think it's more of this is almost like not a skills tournament. I don't want to call it that, but it's that emotional part of it is kind of out of it. So I feel like it's just now to who has the best horses.
It's almost like seeing when you almost when people ask well, who's the best team on paper, and then you look at that team actually might be the team that does it instead of the team that's riding a high of the high of a big win or something like that.
Exactly.
It's almost going to be just because everyone kind of all the momentum just stopped when the break happened. It's definitely just it's just going to be what guys are more prepared to do stuff, and what guys are more talented in those areas. Then it's going to be all right, what guys are really gelling, because everyone stops gelling.
Right. No, I think you're right. I mean, we're going to see. I think in the end, Vancouver and Dallas have both kind of shocked me. I thought Vancouver, they're young. They have a ton of young talent, but Vegas is 2 years removed from going to the Cup. They are loaded from top to bottom. Their only thing that may derail them a little bit is they have a little bit of a goalie controversy. They have kind of a 1A, 1B situation, but Robin Leonard has been who they're riding with. And then Marc-Andre Fleury, who's a veteran, who's won several cups, he was fine with that role. And then all of a sudden his agent sends out this picture of essentially calling out the Knights for, essentially the picture was him getting stabbed in the back by the team. So they have that kind of off the ice issue that they're dealing with. So I think in the end, they're just going to be, they're up 3-2. Game 6, I believe, is tomorrow night. So all you need to know is even though Vancouver won the other night, they were outshot 43-17. So they just they have a young goalie right now that's kind of carrying them. But I just think in a 7-game series, in the end, Vegas is sort of the more experienced and balanced team. And then I think Colorado is the same way in the other series. And I think that if they end up advancing the two of them, that's going to be an incredible 7-game series. So I still think it's coming out of the West. I think the Lightning, even if they run into the Islanders or the Flyers, are going to have a tough time, especially with the Islanders, because their current coach used to be with the Washington Capitals, plays a very, very defensive system, which obviously defeated the Lightning a couple years ago in the Eastern Conference Final. So it wouldn't shock me if it's Islanders and Vegas or Islanders and Colorado, which I said it before to a couple of my buddies who were talking about the playoffs, kind of the same question. All right, where do we go from now without the Bruins? And it would be kind of a fitting, it was a weird year to have, a team like the Islanders versus the Golden Knights, or the Islanders versus the Avalanche. It's just a weird matchup on paper, not traditional in any stretch of the imagination, but sure. it'd be fitting for, kind of an odd year, probably the weirdest year in NHL history, to be that matchup. So
yeah, definitely. That actually, obviously, nothing about this year has been normal. So obviously,
right.
So a messed up Stanley Cup wouldn't, be it would be perfectly fine.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. All right, so Coach, we're gonna segue over to baseball real quick. And
sure.
So I know when hockey's going, you're kind of more in that lane, but in MLB right now, the Red Sox ended up being big sellers at the deadline. Mitch Moreland went to the Padres. Kevin Pillar ended up going to the Rockies, and then a little bit beforehand, Brandon Workman, and then both Heath Hembry went to Philly. So for the Red Sox, 2 years ago they were a 100+ win team going to the playoffs. They were arguably the best team in baseball. So actually they were the best team in baseball in 2018. But they've had a lot of problems since. Mookie Betts had to get traded just because of pure money reasons, and it's unfortunate. But what do you think of where the Red Sox are going, and what do you kind of think of these moves?
Yeah, I think they had to do something. I know the luxury tax was a big thing and all that, but I think my biggest frustration with them as sort of and I would call myself kind of a casual Red Sox fan and more of just a baseball fan in general.
Yeah.
I think it just needs to be more of a direction that is clear to the fans. I don't know, like a couple years ago with Dombrowski, you knew what you were going to get. He has a history of whether it was in Florida at the time, Detroit. He comes in, he gets rid of your prospects, he goes and signs big names, and he wins quick. Yeah. And then he leaves an absolute empty cabinet in the minor leagues once he leaves. And that's his MO. So at least there, I didn't agree with it, but you knew what you were getting. With Chaim Bloom, I think you kind of know what you're getting as far as in Tampa, but their moves to this point don't necessarily make sense. Yeah. I think right now maybe you're going to get to see. I know they called up the Dahlback guy the other day.
He had a home run in the first
game.
So he actually looks like a solid. He actually maybe like a solid guy down the line. I know people are talking about like different moves, like possibly they might try Chavis in the outfield just to try and get as many of these young guys in the lineup as possible. I know they also have a guy in the pipeline, Tristan Casas. He's an infielder, but I don't know. They're going to try a bunch of different things to get these guys up there. So it's definitely an interesting time because they have Sale and Erod coming back potentially next year. They also might have Evaldi still working as well.
Right.
But it's like you're getting these arms back, but it's also going to be like you're almost in a state of limbo where you have like these big names and you have all this money on the books, but it's unclear whether you're going to be contending with that.
Yeah, and I think I'm glad they didn't necessarily, because of the extended playoffs this year, I'm glad they didn't make, like, if they were playing a little bit better and kind of in the mix, I'm glad they wouldn't have, like, gone out just to make the playoffs in this kind of crazy year. So I guess you could kind of look at that and say, well, that's a positive. They at least get who they are right now and where they want to be. But, I mean, you just look at the American League East, they're all of those teams in the American League East, maybe not the Yankees necessarily, but all those other teams, I mean, the Blue Jays are absolutely loaded, and they're going to be loaded for many, many years from now. Tampa Bay, same thing. Even the Orioles are playing very, very good this year, and because of, unfortunately, how bad they have been the past few years, they've had one of the top 2 picks the past few years. I mean, last year, I think it was, or 2 years ago now, the kid Adley Rutschman, the catcher out of Oregon State, who will be in the big leagues in 2 years, maybe even less than that. So that's the thing about the Red Sox is they may not be able to just spend to get right back in it because they're going to be. I mean, the American League, especially the American League East, there's a lot of loaded young talent that they're going to be battling with for many, many. I don't think it's. I mean, you guys are a little bit younger than I am, but I grew up, in the 2001 to 2004. When it was the Red Sox Yankees, and every year you could go in saying, okay, one of them is going to be the division winner and one's going to win the wild card.
Yeah.
That's not, I mean, we've seen it now the past 10 years or so. I believe close to every team in the division has won the division at some point. I mean, Toronto had their little run. Baltimore had a little run. Tampa obviously has been good.
They're kind of fighting with.
So
it's made it to a series. So I mean.
Right. So it's not the. Yeah, it's not the AL East that kind of is historically what we're historically used to. So, yeah. I don't know. I think as long as Chaim Bloom, it's clear what his direction is after this year. Then I'm glad they didn't trade. The rumors of them trading Bogaerts, I think, would have been a monumental mistake. It's kind of I always say like it's one of those positions in sports where the Red Sox. Since Nomar, if you look at the list, they have never been able to really solidify that position. It's kind of journeyman. They, every year, 2 years, they have a different guy at shortstop.
Yeah,
and
since time it was like Steven Drew, Alex Gonzalez, Mike Aviles, all these just plug-in guys.
Yes, yeah, and now you have, there, and it's weird. Like in sports, every sport you can look at and see, this team has historically never had this position. They always say, like, going back to hockey, the Flyers, until this year, really have never had a good goalie for a long, long time. The Dolphins can't find a quarterback. And the Red Sox, I always used to say, were that at shortstop ever since Nomar. And trading Bogaerts, who is your face of your team right now, he is your captain, if you want to call it that, to trade him would have sent ripples through the organization, maybe not to the extent that Nomar did in 2004, but it would have been kind of on that level, and it just wouldn't have made any sense.
Yeah, it would have been a monumental. Like change for the organization. And
Yeah, more than bets too. I think.
I think so because I mean Mookie, unfortunately, like I mean I completely get it. The guy was a star, all that stuff. But I mean, if you trade Bogarts, like I mean, like you said, like we haven't had that type of guy at shortstop in forever. So I mean,
right.
If you're doing that, that's like a monumental step as to where the organization would be going.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that he's not an unbelievable player, but outfielders sort of grow on trees more than shortstops do. And they always say you want to build from the middle out when you're building a baseball team. You know, catcher, shortstop, obviously starting pitching, and then your center fielder. And I like Bradley. He certainly has his gaps, for sure. But it's way easier to develop an outfielder than it is to develop a shortstop.
Yeah,
so.
For sure. Also in baseball, I mean, you know, a lot of those moves, you know, it's unfortunate, like Moreland to San Diego. It's tough to see a guy like that go, but I mean, he's 35. You know, you have these guys coming up in the system. It makes sense as a move. Pilar, you know, 1-year deal, get him out. It's like unfortunate, you know, but you know, it is what it is. But a team who really went in at the deadline was the San Diego Padres. I mean, they ended up acquiring Moreland. They got Mike Clevenger from the Indians. You know, pretty solid guys like that. They got Trevor Rosenthal, who you know many years ago was an elite pitcher. Has kind of revived his career a little bit. And then they also got two catchers, Jason Castro and Austin Nola, because right now they're kind of unsure about where Austin Hedges, their current catcher, is right now.
Yeah, so, I think. Go ahead. Yep, go ahead.
Oh yeah, no. So I was just going to ask you, like, what do you think about the Padres kind of like making a move like this, and you know, do you kind of like where they're heading?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked because I was actually going to bring them up. I have obviously a majority of my friends. They all like baseball and they're sports fans. But even my friends that are, I would say maybe fringe baseball fans, text me and they're saying, "Who is this Fernando Tatis Jr. guy?" It's unbelievable, and it's really like I've thought a lot being a coach and seeing the future of baseball and things like that. I'm weary of where we're going, and I hope we're heading to. It's unfortunate that the two best players in the planet right now play on the West Coast, and that's extremely East Coast biased of me. But you know, Mike Trout is probably could be one of the greatest players of all time, and you know, you ask a good amount of people, and they may not be able to pick him out of a line. Yeah. The fact that both guys, unfortunately, now play on the West Coast and they're not seen as much, and especially this year when there's no, interleague play or that, they're not coming to Fenway for a 3-game set or whatever. Yeah. That's too bad. But I think the Padres going after it is awesome for baseball because if that means they get in, it'll be more eyeballs to see Fernando Tatis Jr. Yeah. And anytime he does something, I retweet it and send it to Major League, tag Major League Baseball. Not that they're reading my tweets, and I say, this is the face of your game. He's young. He's energetic. The kids will love him because he's kind of got a flair to his game. Like he's everything that baseball has been looking for. Mike Trout, they always say he's kind of boring, and maybe he is. He's an unbelievable player, but I just, I hope Major League Baseball doesn't screw this up. Yeah. And what I mean by that is they got to market this guy as much as they possibly can. Same thing with like a Francisco Lindor. Like I'm kind of glad he didn't get traded to the Dodgers or a juggernaut because it's good to have these guys on various teams and even in some small markets, San Diego, Cleveland, these places where these are the guys that they need to be. And Major League Baseball does a horrific job of promoting their players, and I think they have.
I mean, you look at guys like in the NBA, like you can name like 5-10 guys, and you can name like the third, like people can name like the 6th guy on a roster and like know all this stuff about him. But in baseball, like most people, like there's a good number of people who don't even know who the best player in baseball is, and that's a horrific job of baseball. But I completely agree with you on that.
And Coach, I gotta say, I was in the same boat when I heard of this Fernando Tatis Jr. guy. I mean, as you can probably tell, I'm not the biggest baseball fan.
Yeah.
But I was like, who is this guy? Like, they better market him well because that's big success opportunity for baseball.
Right. You're trying to get maybe the casual baseball fans to tune in, and I thought that whole debacle with him hitting that grand slam, the blowout, and everybody's bringing up the idea of the unwritten rules of baseball, which like that it was like bad press, but it was nice to have his name out because immediately people were like, well, this is the guy I need to be watching.
Yeah, it's like who is this guy? And like it, for MLB at this point, like any press they can get is gonna be a positive because it's just like, any like the only way they really get in is like, you saw the Astros cheating scandal, and unfortunately, it's like the worst parts of baseball are the parts that get mentioned: cheating scandal, steroid era, all this stuff, and it's just, and that's unfortunately some of the stuff that's really the only way baseball usually gets into the news of most people.
Right, and I think I just think they have to do a better job in giving the players a platform as well. Like, I obviously now with social media, it should be easy for the players. Now, I'm not saying they all have to do it. If that's not your thing, that's not your thing. But they need to have more than that. And Major League Baseball can't squash things. This year it should have been a great year where the MLB.com at Bat Pack, it should have been free for anybody that wanted to sign up. There shouldn't have been any blackouts this year. I should be able to watch any game I possibly want. It just seemed I have a real Rob Manfred more. I know Roger Goodell. I know is a public enemy number one when it comes to commissioners around here. But
it really should be Rob Manfred. I mean,
Rob Manfred is he talks about being a commissioner and all the goals that he has about growing the game, but everything he's done to this point has been to diminish. He's talking about getting rid of minor league baseball teams, and he's talking about he's always putting restrictions on what the whole handling of the Astros, and then since then, Trevor Bauer should have been able to wear those cleats the other day. That made headlines. That made headlines.
Yeah, no, I mean, again, it's just every step that he does seems to just detract from like the game.
Yeah.
It's just like, and it's almost just like, is it like he's in the wrong time? Is he in the wrong time period? But it's just like he just can't make a right decision.
No. And in a year where he easily, because of, there's so many points during their whole labor dispute and how they, with the dealing of the disease and the pandemic and all of that, he had so many easy wins that he just botched.
Absolutely.
They could have been the very first league to come back. They easily should have been. And that would have gotten so many more eyeballs. It would have been the only.
It honestly could have really just changed the perception of baseball, because people are going to go, well, this is on, let me take a look, and if some early games really get a spark going, it might be something that could have revived the sport. And it's like, even though we're stuck at home, you got baseball and it's entertaining enough. And it could have been a monumental thing for the game, but
absolutely.
But he just botched it, and it's like, and baseball got sent right back to the sellers basically.
Yeah, and even I'm usually, because of me coaching this summer, I don't get to sit down and watch innings 1 through 9 a lot. I'll always on social media I'll catch up on the highlights from the night, or I'll flip on MLB Network. But I even found myself, that first week I remember the Nationals opened up with the Yankees, and I watched it, and I was excited. And I was all in. And I watched the first couple games. And then once it was like, oh, wow, the Bruins are coming back. Even myself, as baseball is always going to be my number one love. Even myself, I was like, well, I got hockey. And now hockey's done. And I'll come back to playoff baseball, and I'll follow it now. But all of a sudden, in a week and a half, the Patriots are going to be back.
Yeah, and the Sox are out of it, too.
The Sox are out of it, yeah.
I mean, you already said you're more of a baseball fan than a Sox fan in a way. So, but it's just the type of thing where it's just like, it's unfortunate that they had it's almost kind of like the last ditch effort for a lot of not even casual sports fan, because I know you're a very avid sports fan. So I mean, for a lot of sports fans, it's almost just like second fiddle to a lot of things.
And it was. Yeah, I mean, I think sports have provided what they have provided has been a really, really good distraction, unfortunately, to everything going on. And I think the NHL and the NBA did a tremendous job showing the bubble works. I think both. I will tell you, I haven't watched a single. I'm not a big basketball guy, but I know at least it's worked. Who knows what will happen with college and football and NFL. I think baseball has done at one point, when the Marlins Cardinals, that whole breakout happened, I said, there's no shot this is going to work. It's over. They mishandled it. They botched something else. But they've kind of, knock on wood, they've kind of powered through. And I think it's going to end up working out. They're talking about doing a bubble for the playoffs, which I think is a perfect idea.
Yeah.
So I think in the end, I think this fall is going to be awesome. I think you're having the NHL and the NBA are going to be coming down their finals. You have a bunch of golf majors. You have the NFL, the college football, playoff baseball. You have the second half of the Triple Crown horse race. It is going to be an awesome fall.
Yeah,
Hopefully it works out.
It's going to be monumental for sports. Really, it's going to be. I mean, a lot of people talk about like the sports equinox when all four sports are on.
Yeah.
It really only happens once a year. There's a chance that'll be happening like most nights this fall, which is pretty crazy.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting is that now I'm very intrigued about is, okay, now what does this mean for next year? I don't know if it was because of when it came or because of how weird it is, but usually, a Bruins playoff loss takes me a couple of days, to turn sports coverage on again, to click on the NHL app on my phone. Like, it takes me a while. I kind of close out. Yes.
Yeah. Kind of warm the season, and then it's like, all right, what are we going to go to now?
Right. And now with this, it's like, I was upset. Certainly, I wish they had made more of a run, and it's even sadder when you think, who knows, maybe this is one of the last ones. But you look at it and say, well, in 2 weeks, we have a very exciting Patriots season, and we have so I think that part of it, usually when they get knocked out, it's early spring, late spring, and if, the baseball season you have, but other sports you kind of have to wait a little bit. So that maybe helped the grieving process a little bit.
Yeah, so I definitely have to say, it's definitely going to be a very interesting fall. A lot of stuff's going to be going on. But Coach, I just want to thank you so much for coming on. It's been great having you. So I think we're going to end up segueing to the next thing. Just wanted to thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Thanks for having me
on. You got some good things to say.
Yeah. I mean, the next time we probably have to segue to hockey. We'll probably be looking your way because way freaking more than us.
Yeah.
Your knowledge
call
is
me whenever.
So much better than us. So it was great talking with you, Coach. I'll make sure to talk with you again soon.
All right, awesome. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
All right, I'll see you, Coach. Take care. All right, that was awesome.
Awesome.
Yeah. So I mean, we're gonna do a quick little segue to NFL real quick. So, especially in the video game, let's talk about the video game world for NFL. So one of the things that's been going on right now for NFL is Madden 21 is either in a pre-release or or some people are getting releases of it now. And the game is not doing well at all, at least rating-wise. A lot of people are mad at Madden right now because, people are saying that it's just the same old thing, and, a lot of people are just very overtired with it, and that's why the whole #NFL drop EA movement has come up. So before we get into that a little more, we're actually going to end up inviting in one more person, and let's see if we can get him in.
Oh man, this excites me.
Oh boy.
Tyler Tucker!
How are
What's
we doing,
up?
buddy?
How's it going, guys?
Yo,
Good.
so for anyone who doesn't know, Tyler typically does the show with us when we're at Bryant, but unfortunately he's not here this fall. But we just wanted to get him on and do a quick hey. Tyler, how are we doing?
I'm doing good. Just got out of work, It's a good day.
Pretty tired?
Yeah, I'm shot.
Makes sense. All right, so before you got on, we just made a segue over to NFL, and we're talking about the Madden ratings and basically how the #NFL drop EA hashtag is trending everywhere. What do you think of Madden recently, and what do you think of this whole movement of video gamers just kind of being sick of all of it?
Well, they're all justified. They've been pumping out the same exact thing since 2013 and expecting us to buy it every year,
Yes, sir.
and it's all the same, and it's all bad.
And for anyone who doesn't know that statement that he made, it's not actually hyperbole. Madden basically, if you think about the ones and zeros of the game, the actual game itself hasn't really been remade since 2013. Obviously, graphic updates have come along and different things like that. But the actual core gameplay itself is what Tyler said from Madden NFL 13. Nothing has really changed since then with the game.
Yeah, and think about the technological advancements we've had since 2013.
Absolutely.
We're 10 iPhones ahead now?
Absolutely.
Can't make a better Madden?
I mean, it's definitely evident of the fact that EA is basically kind of just like they're kind of just content with where they are right now because they have no competition. I mean, even an NFL 2K for a while hadn't had an I mean NBA 2K for a while had an NBA Live, who I mean obviously some people said was superior, but for the most part a lot of people were just like, you know what, 2K is better, but it almost kind of gave 2K that kind of kick to be like, oh shoot, we kind of have to step up our game.
Yeah,
because,
that'll do it with any competition. It'll just force you to step up,
And as people that have been playing EA games our entire lives, this isn't something new. I mean, it's every EA game that it's never updated. There's constant bugs. I think I used to have the opinion that NBA Live was actually better than 2K. I only played NBA.
Which you were wrong, but go ahead.
Completely wrong. But 2K, they show so much more potential when it comes to the opportunities with things you can do within the game, and the overall gameplay is just a lot better. I think I would be thrilled if the NFL signed a deal with 2K.
Yeah, I mean NFL. I don't think they've had a 2K game since 2K5. So I mean, I think just any competition for EA would just be great because unfortunately, their contract with the NFL is now running through 2026. It was originally going to expire in 2021, but they ended up re-upping it. So we're gonna have to wait a little longer before we can see, if we can get that competition. But I think football fans and just video game fans in general need it because, like the franchise mode on Madden, awful.
Yeah.
I mean,
not fun at all.
I mean, MUT is really the only thing that keeps a lot of players coming back, but that's just pay to win football, and a lot of people.
Exactly.
And Madden Ultimate Team is also the same thing every single year.
Exactly.
Yep.
I mean, I know Madden 21 actually had a decent new mode in it. It was called the Yard, and it's basically kind of like a backyard football NFL Street kind of deal. But I mean, it's at the point where their My Career mode is genuinely kind of unliked by a lot of people. Some people do like it, but in comparison to My Career is like 2K and other things like that, it's nowhere close. But it's definitely going to be interesting to see where they go from there.
We've seen this before where EA will add some spectacular new mode to their game instead of just updating the gameplay.
Yeah.
I mean, at this point, players are really just paying $60 for a roster update, and I can understand that it's just going to be insanely frustrating for these guys.
Now, Brian, when you said NFL, I was absolutely shocked that you did not just spit out Kirk Cousins' name, because I thought that was going to be the first thing I was hearing about as soon as I hopped on.
Oh, so what are your thoughts on Kirk Cousins not caring about the coronavirus?
Tyler? I think Tyler just froze there real quick. So, I mean, I'll have you give your input real quick while Tyler's trying to come back.
I mean, I think he definitely is speaking the mind of a large majority of people.
Tyler, you back?
All right, I'm back.
All right,
Sorry about that.
Yeah, so you can jump in on that too.
Oh my God, what was he thinking? Can either of you guys justify that? Let's. Doesn't Kirk Cousins have kids? So you're gonna go out there and say, well, if I die, I die. You have children, and isn't that something you have to take care of? You got to win us football games. I know you only win 8 of them a year, but you still got to win us some football games.
Still hasn't won a Monday Night Football game, Tyler.
Yeah. Yep.
So I mean, it's definitely. I mean, I actually didn't hear about that story too much until you actually brought it up. So, I mean, I just don't think it's a smart thing for.
I mean, he literally said, "If I die, I die."
Yeah.
That was like quote. If I die, I die. And I mean,
with that platform,
you have that opinion, but that's one that's not going to look good in front of the media. It was like Drew Brees earlier in the offseason when he was saying all his things. Keep it to yourself if it's going to make.
And this is why leagues like the NBA.
A lot of things. If you're kind of in the mode of you kind of have to just think about that stuff, and it's like. Honestly, a lot of people probably, are kind of over COVID, and it's probably a fair assumption to make. But as a player, you do have to, a negative, a net positive, or a net negative
Yeah.
for myself.
And think about the platform you have. Think of how many people listen to you speak. Granted, there's not a lot of Kirk Cousins fans, but there's a lot of Vikings fans. Well, there's a decent amount of Kirk Cousins fans, but there's a lot of fans and young, impressionable kids that are listening to this dude, and they're like, "Oh, I guess if I die, I die."
Wait. Okay. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
So Tyler, also in NFL news that came out was that Leonard Fournette just got let go by the Jags. They are really going for Trevor Lawrence. It is apparent now that they're really trying to get that guy to restart the franchise. Where do you think? Where do you probably have Leonard Fournette going?
I think the Bucks. The Bucks.
So,
yeah.
So here's my thing with Fournette and the Bucks. I mean, obviously, it seems like a good fit, but I mean, at the same time, though, I think they're too loaded in the backfield to be signing them. I mean, it's possible that you could bring out a guy like that, but they have guys like Jones. They have LaShawn McCoy. They seem to have a pretty loaded backfield, and it's a matter of just like, I mean, obviously they're in a win now mode because they only have Brady for 2 years right now. So I mean, I get it if you want to bring him on, but I mean, then I think you're just gonna definitely have to make some moves at running back because I mean, another position they're like overloaded at right now and don't know what to do with this tight end because you got Gronk, Howard, and Brady.
I mean, I think signing with the Bucks would certainly be a good move for him because that's a pretty good shot at a ring.
Definitely, I'd say so.
Yeah. That's why I put him there because Tampa Bay is in. We have 2 years to win a Super Bowl, so they need to just get as much talent as possible and just abuse every other team they face. Yeah. That's why I put him on the Bucks.
Yeah. So what are the teams? I mean, I've heard the Bucks thrown around a lot by a couple people. One of the teams that I put out a poll on Instagram and I was seeing what a couple people were talking about. I saw the Bucks thrown out there. I saw the Lions. I know there's been a couple of reports that the Pats have interest, but I'm not really 100% sure about them really going after a guy like him right now.
Hey, Brian, can I say something about the Lions quick?
Yeah, what's up?
I met Kerryon Johnson at work.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I heard about that. How was
that? It was nuts. He just walked in, and my boss, we have walkie-talkies, and my boss radioed back to us and goes, "You guys follow the NFL?" I'm like, "Yeah." She's like, "Well, you know the starting running back for the Detroit Lions?" I'm like, "I think so. I watched the NFC North." And she's like, "Yeah, he's here right now." And we just lost our vibe. It was my goal to get a selfie, but they disappeared after I dealt with them, so
that's unfortunate.
Whatever.
So segueing back, I know. So I mean, the Lions apparently have Kerryon Johnson, so they may be set in that position at running back, but. And the Lions are thrown out there. The Bucks are thrown out there. A couple of teams are thrown out there. One team that I did think was an interesting possible landing spot for him could have been Miami.
Yeah, I did see Miami too.
So I saw Miami, and I think that actually would be a decent spot because I mean, you have I don't know what the hell the 2 is going to be, but even with a guy like Fitzpatrick in the backfield, you have Flores who is from the Pat system and in this later Patriots team, they're trying to establish a power running offense, and it might make sense for a guy like Fournette to go into that offense and see what a guy like Flores could do with them. I mean, I know Flores is more of a defensive guy, but if he could do that and kind of work in a Patriots like offense and give Tua a little more time, even when he's ready, like he'll have a solid guy that he can kind of like either not check down to, but if he feels like he'll be more of a safety valve. I mean, I think that could be a great addition for the Dolphins if they were to bring him on.
For sure, and I think the Dolphins have a very bright future. Tua is going to be a stud for them, and they got a lot of good pieces. And Flores is a great coach. He's the perfect piece for them. I think he's going to build them to a lot of winning seasons and help boost them up there.
I totally agree. So also in the NFL, there was a bit of controversy. It looked like it was going to be an open and shut case, but now there seems to be some miscommunication. So I think around yesterday or a couple days ago, reports came out that Josh Gordon had sold his Super Bowl ring for over $100,000. But now there's reports that he actually commented on a post like talking about it, and he basically said, "Hey, this isn't true." And I'm wondering like what is happening in this thing, and what would you think about a guy like Gordon, like selling his ring?
Who do you get a ring with?
The Pats, and for 50.
Oh.
So
Um.
for me personally, here's where I am on that. If he wants to sell it, I kind of understand it because he ended up getting suspended before they even made the playoffs. So it's almost the type of thing like if Brady was to sell a ring like that, I think it would cause a lot more like questioning because it'd be like, like you're Tom Brady, why would you be selling like your own rings? I thought you'd like be very interested in that. But a guy like Josh Gordon, he didn't even like make it that far. I mean, if you're on any team and like if you're just on the field, like you're usually guaranteed a ring. Like I think of a guy like Anderson Varejao who was on both the Cavs and the Warriors when they played each other in the finals, so it didn't matter who won or lost because he was going to get a ring. Obviously, he declined it, but you look at a guy like Gordon, and he might just be like, you know what? I mean, yeah, great, I'm a Super Bowl champion, and I get this ring, but I mean, I don't. But if he doesn't really have any emotional attachment to it, I can see where he's just like, I'm just going to sell this thing.
Yeah, I mean, for the limited time he was there, you can't really say he earned it. And I think in his own head, he doesn't think he earned it. So that would be my guess as to why he probably pawned it off.
I mean, I would say, though, the games that he did play, I mean, he did look, I mean, obviously, like, I would say his prime had passed him by, but he still was looking like a very decent wideout.
But that's the thing, he wasn't able to make the commitment to stay on the team.
That's the problem. If he had been one of those guys that could have stayed committed, I think he would have been,
he would have been a solid piece.
Yeah, it would have been great for that Patriots team, and that might have changed a lot about how their season went last year. So, also, I mean, let's go. Another thing breaking in the NFL is that Derwin James, safety for the Los Angeles Chargers, is now out for the season. I mean, that's a big blow to San Diego. I mean, I know they're kind of in a weird spot where they have a new quarterback, but I mean, they have some good pieces on their defense, and this is a very unfortunate blow because Derwin James is, when he's healthy, is
a
one of
stud.
the safeties in the league.
And they picked up Everson Griffin too from the Vikings. So you look at their front line, and they were looking to be. I'm sorry, no, they didn't pick up Everson Griffin. They picked up what's his name, the end. Come on, I'm a Vikings fan. I should know this.
Come on, Tyler, you gotta be better than that.
Linval Joseph. They picked up Linval Joseph.
So I mean, they had all those guys, and it looks like their defense was going to be, a big piece that could carry them. I mean, obviously they play in a tough division, but it would have been interesting to see. But that's unfortunate that he had to go away like that. So I mean, that's definitely something that's definitely going to be tough for the Chargers. The Vikings are definitely going to have an interesting season without Stephon Diggs. So, but you guys did.
But you look at that Justin Jefferson. That kid's a beast.
Does look solid. NFL will be starting in a couple weeks, and it'll be interesting what he can do. Last thing, we usually lead off with this, but we ended up changing things up because of our interview with Coach Casey. So Rockets Thunder, Thunder have come back, and I mean, I know your former roommate last year, Jake, who's a big Rockets fan. He's probably pretty mad right now. Who do you have in the series personally?
I have the Thunder because Chris Paul has been absolutely killing it, and he has such a huge chip on his shoulder that he just wants to annihilate this team. I don't think he cares if they make it any farther than this round. I think if they beat the Rockets, he will be satisfied with just getting swept in the next round. Oh, yeah. Me too. But yeah, I'm taking the Thunder in that series.
It would be the perfect exclamation point on basically just like all the people like Daryl Morey and all those guys who basically said like, oh, he's the reason that this team is so toxic. We're gonna get him out of there. We're gonna Westbrook in here because they have all this chemistry. If Paul manages to knock him out, that's gonna be a devastating blow for.
Yeah,
and here's another thing.
OKC duo.
Yeah.
Yeah, here's another thing about Chris Paul too. If the MVP voting wasn't all about names, he would have been the MVP this year because that team was supposed to be a basement. No, I'm saying of the season. That team was supposed to be a basement dweller, and he led that team and took them to the 5th seed in the West, playing Luka, playing both LA teams most nights. If it wasn't all about names, I would have given him the MVP this season.
Yeah, so Tyler, I mean, last time you unfortunately you weren't on for our last episode, but we were talking about favorites to come out and win the title in the NBA. Who do you probably have right now?
Well, it kills me to say this, but the Los Angeles Lakers are winning the
Over the
NBA title
Celtics?
this year.
Over the Celtics.
The Celtics are going to the finals. It's going to be a Lakers-Celtics finals,
That's
but
your prediction?
the Lakers are going to take it. Yeah.
I mean, the Celtics are up 2-0 right now, so they are looking good, but I'm hoping you're wrong, Tyler. I really am
Yeah?
hoping you're wrong. Yeah.
Who are you taking?
I mean, obviously I love the Celtics, but I've been saying if the Clippers get hot, that's been my whole thing.
I'll give you the Clippers are the more talented LA team. They have more talent.
Unfortunately, if that's the thing though, it's that they've needed to get hot and that it's been tough for them to do that, and that's the.
And Paul George has been so inconsistent. Kawhi cannot do it all. He's shown that he needs a second-hand man. Even in Toronto, he needed Siakam to put up at least 20, or Van Vliet on any given night, or Lowry on any given night to put up 20. And if Paul George isn't his right-hand man, he can't do everything. He can still give you 34 and 8, but that's not a whole team.
And that puts the cherry on top of the LeBron versus Kawhi debate too, because you look at Kawhi, he leaves the Raptors are still a 2 seed. LeBron leaves the Cavaliers. What are the Cavs?
Weren't even invited to the bubble.
Exactly. Kawhi would have had a better shot at winning a finals this year if he stayed in Toronto.
I agree, because the East is very weak.
They'd probably be the 1 seed too.
They would.
Shot of it, yeah. Because you talk about Siakam. I mean, he was really good last year, but I mean, if you look at the jump that guy made between last year and this year, it's monumental.
And can we give credit to Masai Ujiri, who would not give up Siakam for Paul George? He said, no way, I am not giving up Siakam, and that showed to pay off big time, especially in these playoffs.
Because could you imagine right now, Chris Paul and Siakam?
Oh, that would be nice. That would be nice too, but I don't know. I like that Thunder team a lot. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander has really stepped up.
I'm just saying, on top of if they had managed to, if it had
been
George for Siakam, imagine him
on that
team with those guys. That would have been insane.
Yeah.
So I mean, definitely would have been crazy if they'd been able to work that out. But it's tough.
And also the Jazz going down. Watching Donovan Mitchell hit the floor, man, that was hard to watch.
I've been hearing a lot of people say that Donovan Mitchell is, going to have one of the craziest arcs of an NBA career. I mean, you look at a guy like I believe it was Korver who was on his team last year, and he did an interview with guys after the game, and he said this guy is going to be something when he hits that breakthrough. So. I've always liked Donovan Mitchell. Of that draft class, for me, it goes Tatum and then Mitchell. It's not, that's just a favorite wise, not a talent wise. But I mean, if Mitchell just hits that stride, I think that, and the Jazz can get some core guys around him. I think he's going to be an amazing player for a long time.
Definitely.
Yeah, and
the kid shows a lot of potential.
Yeah. For sure. That was a great battle to see. Him and Murray going at it every night, putting up 30-plus a game. That was a great series to watch.
I just hope he's not like all those other former Jazz players and he can actually maybe win a ring.
I don't think so. Jazz are cursed. Malone and Stockton never did it.
I think if he does, it probably won't be as a member of the Utah Jazz, and if it is, they're going to have to see a massive overhaul to get some guys in there. But it's definitely going to be an interesting.
Get some luck too.
That. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know I said finally, but I think there's one thing that we should wrap up with before we we end up signing off. So Gordon Hayward right now, apparently the reports that his rehab is going okay, and if the Celtics do manage to get him back in the playoffs, do you think that's going to have a big impact on on how they're doing right now, or do you think that they're going to be doing around the same as what they're doing?
I think they're doing great right now, and I think Gordon Hayward, he's coming off the bench again without a doubt, but he's easily at 15 to 20 points off the bench every night, which is something that I think they're missing just a little bit, because every night Brown, Tatum, Kemba, sometimes Smart, they're going to score a bunch of points. We don't have that
all points though. Smart's
yeah.
You don't need. Sometimes you don't see a lot of what Smart does in.
He's the hustle guy for sure.
You see him a lot in the in the box, score. But when you kind of just see him play, you can kind of see a lot of things happen. But then you also see him break through and hit 5 threes. So I mean,
Yeah.
it's one of those things where sometimes you can't really have the stats for hustle, but then other times he'll just drop 5 threes in your face, and that's going to be like the big difference.
I think if we have Hayward back for the finals, we take the Lakers to 7 games.
You think so?
I think so.
Yeah.
I'm all in. It's going to be a Lakers Celtics finals.
I'm gonna have to disagree with you there because I think Gordon Hayward is a huge weakness on the Celtics.
Really?
Explain.
Well, I mean, this is more of an opinion rather than a fact.
Okay.
It almost feels like after Gordon Hayward's injury back in 2016, it feels like he never fully came back and hit his potential as a.
Oh, I totally agree. He hasn't been the same.
And every single time I watch the Celtics, sure, he puts up good stats, but he's turning the ball over. You can tell there's stuff that's off with him. I think it would be beneficial if the Celtics got rid of him.
I think he's definitely a little weaker on defense for sure. He can't defend like he used to. He's not as quick off the jump, But I think you give him, maybe he'll give up a couple bad fouls, 3 turnovers a night. But I think it's 20 points off the bench and like just him being there, especially from when he came from. I think he might be that spark, a little bit of a spark we need.
Yeah, I mean, but we haven't lost without him, and
True.
I just
True.
hope that he's not sticking around because of like some sentimental attachment or something like that.
True. He is a lot of money on the books, and if we could maybe dump that, that's a good center right there to put in over Tice.
100%.
That's the only thing.
The one aspect of basketball that the Celtics are missing.
Yeah. I mean, Coach. When we were talking with Coach Casey earlier, he was talking about teams that just can't find that thing, and he was talking about how for a long time after the Sox with Nomar, it took him a long time to find a shortstop. It's almost kind of like that with the Celtics, where I mean, you have a guy like Tice who he'd be a good guy kind of off the bench, and he's decent when he's a starter. But if you could just get a big kind of guy down there to really command the position, it would be such a great
And Cantor is clearly just not enough.
Yeah.
No,
Cantor's
I think
amazing.
my sleeper pick for that role is possibly next year Yusuf Nurkic from the Trailblazers.
You think
Because they're
the
not going to
Celtics
keep.
would give up the shot of keeping him?
It's either him or Whiteside. So I don't know who they're going to go with, and I think
hope it's not
Nurkic is going to be
Whiteside.
more money.
I hope it's
Oh
not
no,
Whiteside.
I'm saying Portland wise, we don't want Whiteside, but
Yeah.
I'm thinking if Portland's probably not going to give Nurkic the money that he wants, so they'll settle for Whiteside, let Nurkic go, and then that's where the Celtics come in, give him some money. He'll be our solid download guy.
What if we dream a little bit and say the possibility of Embiid coming
Oh.
to Boston happens?
Oh, anyone else?
Anyone else? And is that because like you personally don't like Embiid, or is that because you don't?
Oh, 100%. I just don't like the guy.
You don't think that he would be a good fit on the Celtics?
No, he's just toxic and he's a crybaby,
Yeah,
and I don't think he
I'm
would
gonna
fit
have
with
to
the
agree.
system.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that was. I mean, obviously, some interesting NBA discussions. So, Tyler, it's about 8:40. You wanna sing what I think it's about that time.
I think, Ryan, thank you for reminding me. I hate to do this, but it looks like we're down to the wire.
Down to the wire.
Yep. So, unfortunately, that means that we're gonna really quickly kind of speed around, go through everything we talked about. So to lead off the show, we ended up having to unfortunately acknowledge that that actor Chadwick Boseman had unfortunately passed away. Tyler, I know that you didn't get a quick. I know you weren't on earlier, but your thoughts?
He was just an outstanding actor, especially in 42 and Black Panther. He just brought those roles to life. He was amazing, and just to fight through all that for so long and still, just live a normal life, and he's a real life hero. Rest in peace to him.
A human that you aspire to be.
Yeah.
Truly.
Yeah. Definitely is a very tragic loss. I mean, like Tyler said, he could really just bring these guys to life. And I mean, I know that's what they say actors do, but Chadwick Boseman really did have that extra thing that
when I watched him, I really felt everything he said,
And it's you can think of that with a couple actors, but Chadwick Boseman really did define a lot of roles, and he really did a great job. So after that, we ended up having a great interview with my former high school baseball coach, and he's been a coach for many other baseball leagues, Casey Cummins. Had him on. We were able to talk Bruins and favorites about who's gonna who has a good shot for the cup. He was saying that of all years he's predicting a pretty weird cup. He's predicting a pretty weird cup matchup, but that's just because of how freaking weird this year has been, anyways.
Yeah. And then we talked a lot about Tuukka Rask. Yeah. When it comes to hockey,
Tuukka Rask. I mean, we also talked about him. Is he hated on too much? Is it justified? And I mean, it's definitely a mixed bag where it comes to that. And then from there, we ended up talking baseball. We ended up talking, where are the Sox right now? We talked about, the market.
Sox suck.
I know. We also talked about the marketability of the players. We talked about different guys going to different places, and we also brought up San Diego going for it. So it's one of the things I wanted to bring up, but I didn't. Is that the Padres GM AJ Preller did do this before, and it backfired horribly. So I mean, they went and they got guys like Matt Kemp, Justin Upton, Will Myers, Craig Kimbrell, James Shields, and they went out and they spent a ton. And this is the same GM who did this. They did this about 5 years ago. I was in 8th grade, and it failed miserably. But it's going to be.
They got Tatis now. Tatis is the real deal.
So when they did that, they had pretty much no one on the team that besides the guys that they signed, like those monumental names. The difference now is that they have these transcendent young players. Like they have a guy like Machado, even though I freaking hate that guy.
Ugh, I hate Machado.
They have a really solid first baseman in Eric Hosmer. They have Tatis. They seem to be coming along in all these different positions, and I think that this trade deadline actually was an amazing deadline for them. I think that if all these guys can come together and really be a positive for the team, they could really challenge LA for the division, in my opinion, or at least in the playoffs they can be a decent threat.
Definitely.
So after that, we ended up talking NFL. We talked about where former Jags running back Leonard Fournette's going to go. We all had different opinions on that. We talked about the hashtag NFL Drop EA movement as Madden 21 in ratings is currently tanking. We talked about Josh Gordon, controversy about whether or not he sold the Super Bowl ring, and if he did, what does that kind of mean about how he treats that, about how he thinks about that ring. We talked about Derwin James unfortunately going down for the season. Tyler also brought up how he met Kerryon Johnson this summer, and just some interesting stories behind that. And then finally we talked NBA and about where we think that the Rockets Thunder series is going to go. A lot of people are hoping the Thunders is going to go for what a lot of people think was an upset.
Is that game live right now?
It'll be going live at 9. So by Friday we'll be talking about the results of that.
We'll be talking about how the Rockets got destroyed in the last game.
We'll be talking to Jake about how the Rockets.
Yeah, we'll be telling Jake.
Absolutely. So we talked about that. We asked Tyler about his favorites going further in the playoffs, about his finals favorites, and we also talked about Gordon Hayward rehabbing. So the Celtics are definitely going to be interested if he can get back. He might be a piece of the puzzle, or he could be a detractor and really might not be that much. We're gonna have to wait and see. But I'm Brian Costa.
I'm Carter Adams.
I'm Tyler Tucker.
And this has been Down the Wire. We'll see you guys on Friday back at our normal time at 7. It was great talking with you guys. We'll see you soon.